from there, I think I just sort of fell into Tumble Tots and really sort of got into how physical activity really helps and is so important for children at a very early age, so they don't fall into that pattern of when you're at school really not wanting to join in. It has to start early.
From Coordinate Sport, it's The Drive Phase, a show about sports founders, leaders and experts and the stories behind their business journeys. Our guests on this episode are Charlotte Bedford, Technical Director, and Lucy Baylis, Marketing Manager of Tumble Tots, the UK's leading structured physical play programme for children from ages 6 months to 7 years. In this episode, Charlotte talks us through her journey to becoming Technical Director and the philosophy behind Tumble Tots. We also hear how Lucy joined to implement Charlotte's vision for a refreshed brand and how the franchise network is supported by centralised marketing. We also hear the story behind having to pivot to online as the pandemic enforced closures across their leisure facility. This actually led to doubling their Facebook audience and created opportunities for growth in new territories. Enjoy the show. Delighted to have with us today the team from Tumble Tots, UK's leading structured physical play programme for children from 6 months to 7 years old. Currently, 300 centres, 65 franchisees, working with over 35,000 children regularly. We have Charlotte Bedford, Technical Director, and Lucy Baylis, the Marketing Manager. So welcome to the Drive Phase podcast.
Hi, thanks for having us.
Fantastic. Thanks for your time. Really appreciate it. What we always do to start off the podcast is kind of get to know our guests a little bit more. Try to go back. I don't think it's too far back for you guys, but go back to kind of school days and just look at what your kind of experience was growing up, particularly in school and around kind of physical activity and school sport, really.
Coincidentally, Lucy and I actually went to the same school, but 4 years apart. So actually, in terms of the type of school we went to a very sort of driven high school anyway. I mean, personally, at school, physical activity was not on my radar. I would do anything to get out of doing any physical activity.
Sounds a bit like me.
Yeah, I mean, it was, it wasn't my forte, but it was just there. And then actually, when I went to university, my physical activity, that's where it sort of blew up really.
Right.
Because I wanted to throw myself into university life, and I thought, you know what, the best way to do this is to join a sports team. And I ended up joining the rugby club and became quite a dominant figure in the ladies rugby club at Plymouth University. And then somehow just got fully immersed into the sport community at uni. I don't quite know how it happened, but then it finished with I actually won Sportswoman of the year I graduated. And when I sort of think about that, the irony that I absolutely hated any physical activity when I was at school, it just didn't, I wasn't engaged in it at all. It didn't spark any interest. To then finish in uni as Sportswoman of the year, it was just it was so ironic, but I loved the sport, absolutely loved it. I loved what the sport did and what the physical activity did for me, but also what then came as a side to that. So like friendships, community building, things like that, that was really important. And then from there, I think I just sort of fell into Tumble Tots and really sort of got into how physical activity really helps and is so important for children at a very early age, so they don't fall into that pattern of when you're at school really not wanting to join in. It has to start early.
Yeah, and do you think, I know you mentioned there, Lucy, similar for yourself in terms of primary school?
Yeah, I've never been interested in any kind of sports at all. My parents were a little bit like, it's really strange how they were both really into their own sports. So my dad played cricket, football for like the local teams. Mom even played hockey and football herself, and I had adopted none of that. My background is actually art-based. I was always really, really creative as a child. Like I said, didn't take part in any sports, but did all the after-school clubs for arts and crafts. And that just kind of developed really. So I actually did fine art at university. And then it was just again, a bit of a fell into sort of things where I actually started off working as a charity fundraiser. So I would organise events to raise money for charity because I really liked organising events as well. And alongside that, I found that I quite enjoyed the promotional side of it, and then actually the design of things like the posters and the leaflets. And a lot of what I have learned over the years has mostly been just a combination of the different jobs that I've had and being self-taught as well. So like I said, I didn't go to uni expecting to become a marketing manager. I wanted to be an artist. And I suppose in some ways the creative aspect obviously does help with like the aesthetics of things like brands and logos and color schemes, etc. So yeah, I kind of fell into marketing as well, but I still haven't adopted anything sporty.
No, it's transferable skills from art, definitely. I mean, in terms of we also look at the reasons, and you're working hard at it at the moment in terms of, I guess, attracting or switching kids on to being physically active or actually enjoying what they're doing. I guess when you were at school, you didn't have that feeling in terms of being excited about participating. Do you find like now, is it kind of different in terms of when you're looking at parents that obviously for someone to bring their child to Tumble Tots, and we'll touch on the programs, etc., they've got to be pretty proactive, I guess. It's not like they're at school, they're not. It's just not part of the curriculum. They've got to have to bring them, especially at an early age as well. Do you see, I guess, parents' attitudes changing towards that?
I think so, and I mean we've got such a good program and longevity. So we're sort of 42 years strong now, and we've got different generations now coming to Tumble Tots. But the parents that we see, they take an active role in making sure their children do stay active and start active. Our classes are fully participated with parents, so parents almost have to have it in them as well to want to take part and to be active with their child for just that 45 minutes. And just that 45 minutes can have a massive impact on children as they grow up and develop. We know a lot of the children who come to Tumble Tots, when they do reach primary school, they will then go on to do other sporting activities or just enjoy being physically active, whether it's running around the playground or going on a climbing frame, because they've learned to enjoy it in a playful way at such an early age. Again, going back to those transferable skills, that those transferable skills then go on as they go into school, and they can really enjoy being physically active because they've engaged in a fun way to start with.
Just on the business side of things, I know obviously you mentioned their Tumble Tots brand being 40 plus years old. It's obvious that you guys aren't that old to be able to run in for Tumble Tots for 40 years after university. So what's the kind of background in terms of, I know it was started back then, links to British Olympians. I'm assuming that it's gone through various different guises over the years, but what does the program look like at the moment in terms of the offering to franchisees and parents?
We were actually, our programme was developed by, you're right, an ex-Olympian British gymnastic coach called Bill Cosgrave. And he had a gymnastics club in the 70s. And what he found was that when children were going to the gymnastics classes, children at sort of 5 or 6 had no idea how to use their body. So, for example, they couldn't walk in a straight line, they couldn't jump, and it was all those things. And Bill thought, hang on a minute, we need to do something before they get to that stage. How are we going to help them run and jump and understand how physical activity works? Bill was quite an eccentric guy. He thought like a child. So he devised Tumble Tots. And actually, our programme and what our classes offer hasn't actually changed since 1979, because the way children physically develop hasn't changed. What we know more now is how physical activity benefits their development, their social development, their cognitive development, but actually what the programme delivers hasn't really adjusted. And it's one of those things when I moved into the role that I'm in now a few years ago, I thought, right, let's get some people in objectively to have a look at our classes. Let's get a few experts in to think, right, are we still hitting everything that we should be hitting? So we got some physical activity early years specialists in to look at the classes, and actually what we offer is still just as valuable today as it was in 1979.
Has it always been a franchise operation? Sorry.
Yeah.
So right from the start, it's franchise operation. I guess it's a good point to touch on how both of you got involved with the company, or how you found yourselves in your current role.
So I graduated in 2010. So I've been with Tumble Tots 11 years now. I kind of just fell into Tumble Tots. I graduated with an English literature degree. I enjoyed uni more for sport and my social life than I did necessarily the academic side of it. But during that time in 2010, midst of the recession, so it's like, oh my goodness, I'll just apply for anything and anything. And I came across Tumble Tots, and from there I fell in love with our brand, what we offer, and I was lucky enough to sort of work my way through. And
Yeah, what role did you come in at?
so I've always worked for Tumble Tots head office. I actually worked as the previous technical director, as almost like her assistant. So when I first came in, I actually worked in the classes for a long time as an acting franchisee. And then my role developed at head office in terms of supporting our franchisees, program development, training development, things like that. And then I was made director of the company. What did we say? It's like 3-4 years ago now?
Yeah, it was the same year I started. So I started in 2017 and you just become made the director then. So yeah, nearly 4 years ago. Oh my God.
So was that a case of when you got that directorship, you went back to your old school looking for talent and found Lucy there, or just a coincidence?
We didn't even know that we'd been to the same school together until we kind of like started talking. But yeah, I joined in 2017. As I said, I'd worked in fundraising before, and that kind of evolved more into the marketing side. So from fundraising and creating events to kind of going into the marketing of the events. And then I've been a marketing manager at a previous role. And then I saw obviously the position for the marketing manager. I didn't actually know the head office was based in Redditch because the address they'd used on the application form was still in Hales Owen. So when I actually went for my interview, it took me a whole 4 minutes to get from home to the office. I was like, oh, this is perfect. And I just love being part of the team. We're quite a flat organisation in the sense that there's not many of us at head office anyway. People think that there's loads of us because of all our franchisees, but there is literally about 7 of us at head office. So we do work quite hard. And it's nice because we all get on. Like I said, we're quite flat. Charlotte is technically a director and I'm just a manager. But we work really well together. Charlotte and I work very closely together because everything technical is almost injected into the marketing. So I market what the kind of things that Charlotte was talking about. So all the benefits of the program, the transferable skills and things like that. So we consult regularly about different activities and campaigns. And obviously the content is put together by Charlotte and kind of marketed by me. And I make things look pretty and jazzy.
I was just going to say, in terms of looking at branding and the website, obviously for a brand that's been going 40 years, it still feels pretty fresh. You're looking at your site and stuff like that. Have you gone through any kind of, not rebranding, but I guess refreshes over the years, or is that something you did when you got in post?
Yeah, basically, as soon as I got there in 2017, I was like, we're having a new website because the previous website was not mobile friendly, so it wasn't, up to date with technology. And although we had, like I said, it's a good thing that we've been running for 42 years. Unfortunately, things do just kind of get stuck, especially when a lot of the previous staff had been there for nearly 34 years. You can get a bit sort of stuck in your own ways. And I'd like to think that when I joined in 2017, I shook things up a bit. So straight away we had a new website that's now like mobile friendly, and it's got a bit more advanced technology behind it in the search functions. And we haven't changed the brand. The logo is still the same and the same key messages and colours, but we did have a brand refresh recently, just to kind of, again, just bring things up to date. So it's still got the key messages and everything, and like I said, the logo hasn't changed. I'm not allowed to touch the logo. But yeah, just to bring it a bit fresher, get everyone on brand as well. So obviously we've got a lot of franchisees, and again, some of them have been with us 30 years, some have been with us, 1 year. So it's trying to get all of them on brand as well, getting them up to date and making sure that the brand is nationally recognisable. Like wherever you go in the country, it's going to look the same, from Glasgow down to Brighton, that kind of thing.
I remember it from growing up as well. It's a household name, I guess, once you get to that age. And especially now, young parents as well will know it well. Charlotte, I guess for you, in terms of technical, that's obviously looking at everything from delivery to, I guess, operations as well. Is that covering everything in between?
Yeah.
From the franchise point of view, what's your kind of ideal or I guess, average franchise profile look like? Is it a single operator, or what's the makeup
So
kind of
all
look like?
the majority of our franchisees are single operated, because that's the way that they're going to get more money. Basically, they're going to get a bigger profit.
Yeah, better return. Yeah.
A couple of partnerships out there that work really, really well. We've got Tumble Tots Newark, they're a partnership, and Orpington as well. But obviously, when you go into partnership for Tumble Tots, it does reduce the profit, that because you've got to obviously share it. But a lot of our franchisees are either parents, mums generally, who have brought their children to Tumble Tots previously, so they understand the brand, they love what we do, and then they buy an existing business. So it's generally parents, predominantly mums. We've got a few dads out there, female franchisees, but it is predominantly females who've sort of had their children are at school. They want something to fit in with school life, which is what our program is. We operate term time only. That's not to say though that as a business owner you only operate term time only.
Yeah, we don't only work term time, unfortunately.
But so yeah, and they vary. We have franchisees who maybe have worked in the city and who just want to finish that off. They don't want that rat race any longer. And then also some of our franchisees have been parents, so, and they want that new challenge. They don't want to go back to a full-time career, like a 9-to-5 slog. But Tumble Tots fits in really nicely with them. So yeah, we've got a varied bunch actually, and it's quite nice when you get to know them. You think, oh my goodness, you used to work for them, and you can see them. They bring in different skills to their businesses.
Yeah, it does resonate, because we've had Christine Kelly from Little Kickers recently, and obviously similar type of franchise offering. And it does resonate in terms of the franchisees. A lot of obviously mums or working parents who've kind of want a bit of a different pace. In terms of, I was going to say, I guess the elephant in the room has been COVID, obviously, and it's affected all businesses in our sector and all our listeners in different ways. I'm interested to hear kind of more so what the positives are, or lessons learned from the situation. I mean, we spoke to one of our other guests from the US, and they're kind of a big franchise operator, but difference with them is all their franchisees carry facilities, right? So they have big leases, I guess that kind of burden. I know for your franchisees, they tend to hire facilities rather than hold a lease. So slightly different, and probably be able to be a bit more agile. What programs did you put in place at the time? I guess if we take ourselves back to March last year when you got the news, what was that process like, and what did you do at the time?
I would have to say the week that we sort of closed classes before we actually went into a national lockdown. That decision and that evening was one of the hardest nights I've ever had to work in my life. Myself, our managing director, and our chairman, we were all on the phone together about 10 o'clock at night, and I had Lucy on another phone being like, get ready, get this artwork ready, this is what's going to happen. And having to make that decision, knowing that it's going to impact all of our franchisees, was really, really hard. Whether what we had to think about was the safety of our franchisees, their teams, their parents, and the staff, and also our brand reputation. So we took the decision to close classes, and then within pretty much 24 hours, Luce, wasn't it? We went online because we knew we had to do something. We knew we had to keep the brand alive, keep children physically active, and the way to do that was to offer free online classes direct from my living room.
Was that almost, I guess, forced on you? And I know we were in the national lockdown, but in terms of facility-wise, you're generally operating out of leisure facilities?
Yeah, I mean, it wasn't the facilities, it was the sector. A lot of our competitors were closing, and it was just
kind of just the right thing to do at the time, was it?
Yeah, it was the right. It absolutely was. And even though at the time we did face a little bit of backlash to some of our franchisees, I think in retrospectively now, they think actually, yeah, it was the right thing to do, and it made our brand still as strong then as we'd worked so hard for it to be really strong. And so yeah, it was a tough decision, but the right decision to make.
Yeah. So, and I interrupt you then. So you're going into the online world. And is that the first time you've done anything online? For obviously online classes is a brand new thing.
That was a new experience for all of us, wasn't it?
Pivot into that. Yeah. So Lucy, you didn't have the market research ready for that, Lucy, then at the time. No.
Well, we kind of, did a bit of research into it, but we did pretty much just go for it.
It wasn't something you had in the pipeline.
No, literally, like Charlotte, like just thought of it, like, and we were on the phone quite a lot, and she said, right, I've got this idea. We need to keep classes alive and the brand alive, and also, to keep children active from home, because obviously they can't go to the classes. They still have a membership with us. They would still expect to do something with us. So Charlotte had this brainwave, let's go live and they can watch. And then, after the first couple, we kind of got into a rhythm of like what we did. So we had people commenting, and Charlotte has a helper who writes their names on the board and she reads out their names. And of course, the children love that, the fact that somebody's actually engaging with them. And we'd see videos of parents watching and their little ones, as soon as Charlotte said their name, like, oh my God, I'm famous. They absolutely loved it, and they loved Charlotte's bubbly personality. Definitely wouldn't have worked if I'd gone live. That's why Charlotte's the technical director, I'm the marketing manager, I sit at the back. But yeah, like loads of different ways of trying to get new people to join. So things like creating online Facebook events, sharing it to groups. Lots of groups obviously kind of blew up around lockdown. So there's one group, I think it's family sort of lockdown isolation ideas, and there's about 1 million parents in that group. And we found that sharing the live videos to that group would automatically just like bring loads of new people to watch Charlotte, and at some point she'd get 2,000 people watching live at a time. I think the highest sort of watch back rate,
no
pressure, the highest we've got in terms of views from individual people, and this could be that whether they've watched it live or watched it back, is 83,000, which is incredible. And of course, with that and talking about like the success of Corona, if you like, or the good things that have come out of it, is since Charlotte was live in March, we doubled our online following, which means we've now reached like a new audience. So when classes do go back, hopefully we've got captivated them enough to actually come to physical classes as well. But also there's the other aspect that we're providing the sort of physical education to children who don't have a local Tumble Tots. So we've got a couple of people who go to Tumble Tots who've been watching religiously, or did go to Tumble Tots, and unfortunately the centres have closed, and they still join in, which is great. But we're also reaching new people. So we've got a little chap called Freddie in Belfast. We don't have classes in Belfast. And he's been watching since like day one. So that's again something that benefits him, and it's nice to be able to reach those people who aren't in our immediate service areas. So we're kind of hoping that will also encourage people to sign up as franchisees in those sort of areas that we don't have anywhere, like Belfast, Bristol, Cardiff, sort of areas where we really, really want to be, because we know that we can help the children that live there.
I think what it's also done as well, Luce, is the sessions have meant that children, particularly sort of early years children, so we're talking 2, 3, 4-year-olds, are joining in with some physical activity. Now we all know there's various activities going on.
I was going to ask you about this. So in terms of Joe Wicks, like doing a fantastic job service for the nation, etc. But in terms of our listeners and people guests I've had on the past, as kind of practitioners, I know your background in child development, etc.
Yeah.
That kind of being branded as the PE teacher rather than physical activity, which is what he's doing, getting everyone moving, can maybe be a bit disappointing for some of the practitioners out there, professional people who have got some whose programs look at actual development rather than kind of just getting active. I just wonder what your take on the whole Joe Wicks situation, the whole Joe Wicks thing is.
He's a phenomenon. He's doing so well, and I'm a great advocate for him in terms of getting people moving. I think what his sessions lack is for children. Now, I've done a couple of his sessions, and I'm 34 years old.
I struggled to do the beginner's session.
They're hard, some of them. But I think where there's a bit of a gap in what he's doing is for children under 7. And, children 2, 3, 4, 5 can't even jump sometimes, let alone do star jumps for 30 seconds. So that's where our sessions, particularly, I've been quite conscious to make sure the content is relevant for the children watching to join in with. And I'll use as an example. Until children reach about 3, they don't really execute what we would call a refined jump, because their messages and the way that the body develops, their body doesn't understand how to jump. So sometimes, and I'm sure you might have seen it, James, with your little girl, is that it might be almost like a gallop, or you say jump into the pool, into the swimming pool, or jump off here, and you can just see them sort of wanting to do it, but because the messages aren't getting down to their feet in order to execute that jump, they really struggle. So what we then look at in our sessions go, right, hang on a minute, what do we need to do to start jumping? We need to march. So let's march on the spot. And so that's where sessions like ours, which are really driven and focused for our audience, how I think are hitting the nail on the head for early years children, rather than what Joe Wicks is doing, which is great for sort of children maybe 7+ and then adults, obviously. But you can't deny what he's doing is great. It's just that there needs to be, I think, a bit more of a focus on actual children moving and not sort of necessarily adolescents, perhaps.
Definitely. I think, well, like I said, he's done a great job in terms of even just switching people on to be open to doing something online, looking at a screen and just following along. But yeah, I think what you're saying about that process that you explained about jumping, I think for a lot of parents, if they can see that development in their child, they couldn't jump 3 weeks ago, now they can perfectly, adds a lot of value, I guess, and kind of memories for parents as well. I'm going to be a bit, I guess, nerdy in terms of the technicals. And when you were broadcasting and things like that, what kind of mediums were you doing that on? Was it a Zoom or was it kind of Facebook Live? What would you put on?
It's Facebook Live, yeah.
Do you think that helped you with grow the audience then? Because you kind of got that automatic built-in notification and all that type of stuff.
So most of our followers are on Facebook, compared to sort of other platforms like YouTube, Twitter, and Instagram. So obviously we'd already got a big audience anyway on Facebook, and then we did share links and upload the video to YouTube, Instagram, and Twitter after, so it could be rewatched. But we gained more audience on Facebook. So we had about 25,000 followers. And I think within like the first couple of weeks of Charlotte being live, we doubled that. So we're nearly up to 50, which is absolutely great. And obviously, like I said, that just keeps growing. So that's the platform that we use, and it works for us. We've stuck to it. Like I said, it means that people can comment and Charlotte can read out their names. I can share it to different groups as Charlotte is live to kind of hopefully encourage more people to watch. And then we upload it to YouTube after. Unfortunately, our YouTube following isn't as big, so I don't know if we would have had much success going live on YouTube in terms of like the people that already are sort of subscribed to our channel. But we have had more subscribers, obviously, since uploading videos to YouTube.
Yeah, you're right. I think obviously young parents or parents of young children are gathering on Facebook. Well, everyone's on Facebook, but those groups are probably a key. So this time around, obviously that was kind of done out of necessity. This time around, obviously no one wanted the second lockdown, but has it been almost back to normal again, but kind of a bit more refined, a bit more of a process this time, I suppose?
So I think during the first lockdown, we started in March and we finished in August. And yeah, when I say it like that, I'm like, oh my goodness.
I was going to say, do you think you'd have started if you knew it was going to last? It's going to last
every day as well. So now we're just doing Monday, Wednesday, and Friday. So poor Charlotte can have a break. But this was every day at 10 o'clock. I don't know how she did it.
Because you got into a rhythm and a pattern, it kind of just worked. And like Lucy and I worked very well together. I knew what we was doing, and it kind of just flowed last year. And then when classes went back in September, we put all the Tumble Tots at home, branding away. I thought, you know what, we'll never need it again. It'll be fine. Like we can go back to doing my normal job, as it were. And then we actually, when we locked down sort of November, we reinstated the sessions again, because we knew that everybody had gone back to classes. We're absolutely loving being back in classes. And actually, we saw quite an unexpected increase in attendance in our classes, which was great. So we thought, you know what, let's give those people something. You know, we can't go for at least 4 weeks, so let's give them something. So out came all the branding again. And it was when we went into this third lockdown, there was a little bit of back and forth, like, shall we do the sessions again? Shall we not do them again? Because that it's exhausting trying to do all of it all the time. And we just thought we have to do it. Like, we have to keep our brand strong. We have to keep these little ones moving, and just injecting a little bit of fun 3 times a week into what is a tough time for people at the moment. So goodness knows how long we're going to do it again for. But we've sort of said we will go until we can reopen classes again.
Shout out to you for complete. Now, what are you coming off a class this morning then?
Yeah, so I did a class at 10 this morning, and it just gives me a little bit of a buffer to like catch my breath and just get back. So then, I mean, during the first lockdown, I'm like Lucy said, I'm doing quite various roles at the moment. But I'd do my session, and then I'd be working probably to about 6, 7 o'clock in the evening, just managing and trying to get the business through COVID, really. Yeah.
I think that shock, I guess, at the time for everyone, like you said, for your franchisees, your full network, everyone in the industry, it's an unknown, right? So everyone's kind of trying to work through what does this mean, and then I guess, speaking to other people as well, I think in terms of how the government supports come in, I guess when you first probably took that decision to have to close everything, I don't know, was any of the support available at that time? I think there's a little bit of a gap, maybe a few days or weeks between that unknown period, wasn't it?
The furlough helped our franchisees in terms of their staff a lot. So that's great. It still is. The biggest stumbling block though for our franchisees is the self-employed grant, and not many of them have been eligible. They haven't met the criteria to access those grants. So a lot of our franchisees have had no financial support from the government at all, and there's nothing that we can do about that. And I know a lot of small businesses, this has been a huge issue for them, because they haven't had enough sort of tax returns done and things like that. And so our franchisees alone have really, really suffered, because they just haven't had access to any kind of financial support. We've done all we can in terms of our end, looking at their fees and things that they pay us, and sort of we've done our best for them. But it's been a struggle, I think, for a lot of our franchisees out there.
I think I don't know whether we recently did a couple of pieces on our website around what Sport Wales are doing. Have you seen that? But in Wales, and I don't know if you've got any franchisees over in Wales, but they're doing an actual grant specifically for freelance sports coaches. So because it's kind of a missed sector, you know what I mean? Like you said, you've got the self-employed grant, but this one specifically, and they've just actually extended it with this next lockdown. So hopefully England might follow suit and give a bit more support. Again, just kind of go back to the positives coming out of it. I know you mentioned then, Lucy, about Freddie in Belfast. So shout out to Freddie. That, I guess, that's going to be a huge opportunity for you to be able to almost when things turn around and there is going to be a huge demand. Obviously, everyone being locked up, they want to come out and get into classes. For you to be able to kind of boost your franchise sales in those areas, or to attract new franchisees.
Yeah, we hope so. Like I said, I feel like the live sessions have not just reached, more children and families to take part in Tumble Tots, but hopefully reach those areas where people think that there isn't this here at the moment, and it would be great if there was. And it's just great for brand awareness, getting the message out there. And like I said, we've got a few people who watch who have it in the area, and so they're used to it. We have loads of comments of people saying, this is our first time doing it. And even after 42 years, I still have messages on Facebook saying, "What is Tumble Tots?"
Never heard it.
So there are still people out there who don't know what we are and what we're about. And obviously we want everyone to know, but it's great that people are actually asking, because then it means that we've reached new people and new areas.
Have you had any interest? Obviously, because you've gone online, so that kind of opens up, I guess, 2 questions there. It opens up international markets, and one question would be, have you had any engagement from international parents on the online sessions? And also, do you think that's something you might pivot into in terms of providing an online offering for, especially people who just never be able to access a physical
So online,
session?
we've had loads of comments from people all over the world to say that they've joined in, like Australia, Germany, just loads of people commenting. We do actually have a franchise in Indonesia, which Charlotte can tell you a bit more about.
No, it's fine. It's not a big. Our international structure isn't one that is very well known, really. We are in Indonesia, and that sort of derives from our chairman is from Singapore. He's a Singapore descent, and so we've always had sort of connections with the Far East. And it's a funny one. When we look at our business model, how it operates in the UK, and then how on an international market, how it can then transfer, it's quite tricky because we require quite a bit of space, first and foremost, to be able to run our sessions and to be a mobile franchise. Whereas my experience of dealing with the international market is that actually it's a completely different playing field. What people want from their children's activities is very, very different.
Okay.
I mean, we were for a little while in Malta, and we wanted them to run the franchise almost like we do in the UK, but it just wasn't viable. It's because the road systems over there, you definitely wear your seatbelt in Malta when you're driving, because the roads are just, oh my goodness. So the road systems aren't great. People aren't used to going here, there and everywhere with their children necessarily, because it's just too hot for a lot of time. So we do get interest in international development, but it's trying to find a model that really, really works for each and a different country as well. I've got ties to South Africa, and I know Little Kickers are in South Africa, but our programme, I don't think, as it is in the UK and how it's delivered and our model, would work over there, just because of my experience.
Yeah, I guess it's finding that key partner who can help you tweak it for the market. So with that being said, I guess I'm assuming in terms of your strategy, it's not for you to continue online delivering the courses to a worldwide audience and monetize it.
I'd like Charlotte to continue doing online sessions even when we do reopen, because again, I think that it's good for children who don't have a Tumble Tots franchise in the UK in their area to be able to join in. So I think there would be a nice idea, whether Charlotte's willing to do it or not.
I think it's more though, Luce, like you were saying, we're such a small head office, and people do think there's hundreds of us at our office, and there really isn't. So it's
especially now half the staff are on furlough, so it's basically just me, Charlotte, and the managing director.
I think that's a positive. I mean, probably off your brand awareness. I get, the footprint of the brand. It's well known, so I guess that just comes with like, oh, it's everywhere.
Yeah,
so there must be must have a huge back office setup.
But we just don't have the manpower. And pre-COVID, I was barely in the office. My job was going out, seeing our franchisees, seeing classes in action, supporting our franchisees that way. So, and we will get back to that. And with just our restructure at our office, I've now taken on even more work as well. So you have to manage the time, and do you know what? You could probably say in the 6 weeks holiday, in the summer holidays, absolutely, it's something we could look at. Where head office is a little bit quieter, but we know our main market is our physical classes, and children need that physical activity in their lives.
So I guess this is my last question in terms of directly COVID related. I know obviously e-commerce has been huge, just in general. Have you found, because I know obviously you do have an online shop, you're providing equipment, and obviously there's a massive clamour for adults gym equipment when they're locked down, all the gyms are shut, etc. Did you see a spike in e-commerce sales, or was that something that you developed at the time of lockdown and said, right, we need to be providing equipment to parents online?
I mean, our shop has always been part of our business. The shop saw a lot more sales during the first lockdown, because we sell other bits and pieces as well, in terms of sort of learn, like jigsaws and things like that. And it was almost sort of hate using this, but it was unprecedented. We were like, oh my goodness me, we couldn't get the stuff out quick enough. And that actually helped us as a head office during the first lockdown to financially support ourselves.
Sustainable, yeah, of course.
Yeah, and then through our sessions, we came up, first of all, with an activity pack, because we wanted children to carry on using their coordination skills, but also then think, hang on a minute, how can we make this work for us? Because we weren't charging for the session, so we wanted to drive some income from that. So we made up a lovely little activity pack, and those flew, didn't they, Lucy?
Yeah, and some stickers as well, because one of the features of the actual physical classes is at the end, children get a sticker, and they say things like are confident, are happy, can climb and things. And it's almost like a bit of a reward at the end, and children just love stickers. So we also developed some Tumble Tots at home stickers that parents could buy from the online shop and give to their little ones at the end of a session. So those we've sold out of the first lot now. We're just ordering our second batch. So things like that children can use and really feel like a part of the Tumble Tots at home online classes.
If we look more, I guess, day to day, and what we're trying to do, get a bit of insight from yourselves in terms of running that large franchise operation, pre-COVID, or what would be the main recurring challenges from an operational point of view? I know you said you're on the road quite a lot, Charlotte, previously.
Yeah.
What kind of your regular headaches or challenges that come up running a business? Might be a few.
I think one of the biggest challenges is having a very diverse network of franchisees, whereby their profile might be very similar. Actually, they're all very different. In terms of their personalities, the way they run the business, what they want out of the business. So that is one of our biggest challenges, is getting first and foremost to know each and every one of them and how to get the best out of them, and really trying to make our relationship into a positive, collaborative relationship, really. I think that is one of the hardest things, isn't it, Lucy? And meeting all of their demands and expectations, because they all have quite high expectations of what they expect from it.
That's the thing, you've got to keep adding value, I guess, over the years. Especially,
So it's trying to manage that, but also, realise that we have got a lot of franchisees, and just because you don't hear off one person for a few weeks doesn't mean they're okay. So it's making sure we've got the time to go, right, hang on a minute, we haven't heard of them for a little while, in touch, see what's going on. So it's a lot sometimes, Luce, isn't it?
Yeah, as Charlotte said, that we've got such a diverse range, and as I said, some of them have been with us 30 years, some have only been with us a year, and also their technical skills sort of vary. So from a marketing perspective, I've got some that are very clued up with social media. They know exactly what they're doing. They just crack on with it, and they're great, and they don't need as much help on that side of things. Then I've got others who struggle to construct an email. So you have that sort of aspect of trying to, obviously they're doing the program and they're delivering exactly what they're meant to, but in this sort of new world where everything's digital and marketing has gone digital as well, is trying to get them up to speed with the digital marketing side of things and get them engaged on Facebook, Instagram, Twitter, etc. So that is also a challenge with some of our franchisees.
Would you recommend, obviously now you've got like huge organic growth just from what's been going on, but do you utilize, and I guess this is insights for our listeners, do you utilize social advertising, like digital advertising, and what platforms would you use?
Obviously, we don't do it as much at the moment because our classes aren't open, so we're not putting the money against Facebook advertising to get people into classes, because obviously there aren't any. But pre-lockdown, we would put quite a bit of money into Facebook advertising and TV advertising as well.
I was going to say, I've seen a TV advert a couple of times.
Yeah, so we would do that every January, April and September, sort of as the new term starts, if you like, not that we're a school, but in line with the school terms. And looking at things like Google Analytics, you can see the spike in people visiting the website in those 3 periods. So it's definitely worth doing. And yes, definitely worth,
And that's something you're doing on behalf, just to raise awareness of the brand nationally, and then add value to your local fan. They would just get the value from that because you're putting it out.
Yeah, so as our sort of network works is that obviously I at head office market the brand nationally. So we do, the TV adverts go national. You can't unfortunately control the areas that they're broadcast in. But with Facebook, for example, you can target it. So I would target it to the areas or the sort of counties that we have got franchisees. So obviously that would benefit them. But because our profit comes from the memberships and their profit comes from the classes, their benefit is also our benefit. So that's why we kind of work together. So I'll do anything national, so TV, Facebook, anything like that. And then the franchisees are responsible for their local marketing, which I assist with. So I'll give them the tools, all the artwork, or the templates. We've got a guide that we put together for them to say, this is what you need to be doing. Make sure you're doing your local things, so your posters and your leaflets. And obviously I will help one-to-one. So if someone's struggling with social media or any other aspect, I'll kind of give them a bit of insight into what they need to be doing. Obviously, especially with new franchisees, when they come on board, they get what's called business management training, and I go through quite a lengthy conversation with them about what they need to be doing and where they need to be, and any ad hoc help as well. So somebody, it just rings up and says, Lucy, my walking to twos class is dead on a Monday. I say, right, have you done this? Have you done that? Have you got posters? Have you got leaflets? Blah, blah, blah. And tick all those things off. And within a couple of months, they're like, yep, class is full now.
To look forward, I know we've had, and you've probably done this again, probably written like 3 or 4 strategic plans over the last year or so with everything that's going on. But what would, and it might change again, so no one's going to hold you to it. But in terms of future vision, what does it look like for Tumble Tots 5 to 10 years out? I mean, obviously trying to forget the pandemic situation, but where would you like the business to be then?
I think we want, our goal always is more franchisees. We want more franchisees throughout the whole country to make our business stronger and to get our classes reaching more and more parents and children. So it would be absolutely brilliant in the next 5 years to have opened, say, another 10 businesses, which is absolutely doable. And even through the pandemic, we've had lots of interest about franchises and their availability, which is really promising, actually. So that's the goal, and to have more children being able to attend classes. And I do think we've really turned a corner, since Lucy came on board. And there's been sort of a shift in the structure at head office. We've really increased our reputation, our brand reputation, but also attendance. So franchisees, businesses, they're stronger as well. And before COVID, we'd seen more memberships than ever before, which was absolutely brilliant. And like I said, in September, classes were booming, absolutely booming, weren't they, Lucy? Our franchisees were full, their classes.
We were packing memberships like nobody's business.
We couldn't get enough children in, which is absolutely brilliant. So there is hope that actually we will continue to see more and more children.
Yeah.
I think parents now will really value our kind of activity and want to get out with their children after being sort of cooped up for so long.
Definitely. No, it really does feel like, just talking to you, it feels like you kind of got that key focus on trying to build a modern business, you know what I mean, for the future. Personally, how do you, I mean, what we always ask in terms of, I'm always interested in like personal development, like routines, habits, stuff like that. I know at the moment you've got your regular class you're doing every morning, but probably not for you, for everyone else. But do you have any habits like that, I guess, to both of you, in terms of, are you early risers, reading, exercise? What's your kind of things that you do?
I'm terrible. I don't get up early. And working from home hasn't helped. So obviously my office is like the next room to my bedroom. So I literally just kind of roll out of bed like 5 to 9 just to turn my computer on. No, I'm not an early riser. But obviously when all the gyms shut, I did have a gym membership. And I just cancelled that because I'm not going to go for a long time. And I've started to do some exercises at home. So I have actually watched a Joe Wicks. Like I said, I struggled to do this beginner's guide. That was painful enough. But yeah, in terms of structure, it's quite hard, especially working now part-time every other day. So I'll have Tuesdays and Thursdays off. So I won't be as inclined to get up as early as I would on a Monday, Wednesday and Friday. When I say early, I mean like I said, 5 to 9. But actually, Charlotte and I are in a similar situation. We've both just bought new properties. And I'm in the process of redecorating. Charlotte's in the process of redecorating. So that takes up quite a bit of our sort of spare time. But at the same time, it's nice to have the spare time, because if I'd got this house and I wasn't on flexi furlough, I wouldn't have any time to have done any of the things that I have done to it.
Last year, I sort of worked non-stop through 2020. Didn't really, I had maybe like one day off loose, didn't I? And I wasn't put on furlough. And then when furlough came in and actually work dried up a little bit, it was such a good opportunity for me to have to step away from work, because even when I might have had like that one day off, I was still on my phone, checking my emails, making sure everyone was okay. But now I have to step away, because you can't run the risk of working and then when you're audited and things like that. But it's a funny one, because I'm like, oh, maybe I should like do something to more sort of challenge myself. But then also I've kind of thought, well, hang on a minute, just relax.
Sometimes you need to just take a break, don't you? Because like Charlotte said, Charlotte and I, from March till about August, I think both of us worked full time every day, apart from I had a bit of time off in, I think was it June, because they just announced like the last deadline for furlough. So I was put on furlough for a couple of weeks, and then obviously came back in September. And we were sort of still full time then, but argued that there wasn't actually enough for us to do. So let's save the company a bit of money. And for the first time, Charlotte was put on some sort of flexi furlough. So she'd obviously worked full time the whole way through. I'd started to go on a bit of furlough. And then Charlotte had got a couple of afternoons off. And then eventually we're working the same hours now. So Charlotte gets a bit of time to relax.
And I think it's really like I've really noticed that I needed that time. And,
yeah.
You know, I've read a little bit. And, you know, I've got a dog, so I love going out with my dog and going for a walk with him. But also, you know, I think there is such an expectation that, you know, we should all come out of this, you know, a better person and more knowledgeable. But actually, what I felt is that I needed a rest. I need to relax,
decompress.
Yeah, and my body was telling me about it as well. There was so much pressure last year, and because, you know, Tumble Tots means the absolute world to me, and I wanted there to be a business for all of for us at head office, for our franchisees. So I was doing all I possibly could to make sure that happens. But my body was telling me, you need to relax, you need to just stop. So yeah, but ironically, I suppose my own professional development happened when I completed my master's whilst working, whereas any normal person would be like, hang on a minute, now I've got a bit more time, maybe I'll look into doing something like that. But at the time, oh no, we'll just carry on and get it done. So you can see why people want to sort of better themselves at the moment, because they've got the time. But I think people also need to just relax and go, it's okay not to learn the piano or learn Spanish during COVID.
Yeah, I think there is a big pressure, isn't there, to like come out the other side and you know, transform yourself. But I think with the way things are, like as long as you're happy, it doesn't matter. Exactly. You don't need to have an additional qualification or to have lost 3 stone. I mean, I've probably put on about stone, but I'm happy. I'm happy with my house. I'm happy with myself. Work is, you know, like Charlotte said, still there. So I think just focusing on those little things rather than the big things.
You're right. I think it's given a lot of people a different perspective, or just perspective on situation, and be grateful for what we've got. Last question for me, because I know we're always looking at respectful of your time. If you were to go back to the start of your career, so if you went back 10 years or so, what advice would you give yourself at that point to help you in your current roles?
I personally would tell myself, don't take everything personally. You're not going to please everybody. Nobody will ever please everybody. And as long as you're sure in your decisions, that's enough. And to know that it's okay that not everybody's going to get on with you. Not everybody's going to like your decisions that you make. But it will be okay if people can see that you're working hard. Then they'll support that.
Yeah, I'm not sure what advice I would give myself, because if I hadn't gone through all the sort of trials and tribulations I had, I don't think I would be the person that I am. But I think I'd probably tell myself to worry less, because I was, you know, when you're doing your GCSEs, for example, it's the be all and end all, and there's such a stress about getting the certain grades. And then you finally come through that, and then A levels are thrown at you, and it's the same. They're like, oh, it's 10 times harder. Then you're like, oh gosh, all the stress of that. And then it's the stress of university and things. And I didn't actually complete my university degree. I did a foundation instead and stayed at a local college. And I think maybe if I was to give myself some advice, it was when I was that 18 and everyone was applying for universities and things, to say to yourself, don't do it if you don't want to. I ended up sort of not wasting a year, but I'd gone to my foundation diploma, which you have to do before any kind of art and design course. And that was at a local college, because you can do that anywhere. And then you go on to your 3 years at uni. And I went to uni because I was given an unconditional offer, but I actually hated it when I got there. And I kind of knew that I would hate it. So I don't know why I went, apart from the fact that I got this unconditional offer. And I suppose I should have said to myself, if you don't want to go, don't go, do something else. And so I ended up dropping out after 6 months, I got like a temporary job in like IT for 6 months and then went back to college in the September. So it would have been nice to not have wasted that year and obviously get into university debt. But at the same time, if I hadn't have done it, I probably, like I said, wouldn't have been where I am now. Because at the time when I was at the college, so after university, I did 2 years at college to do what's called a foundation degree. And then you can do your third year wherever and whenever. Because the college course was only a couple of days a week, I'd got a bit of free time and I started volunteering in a charity shop. And then the charity shop, it was called Primrose Hospice actually. They were organising events to raise money for the hospice, and they asked if any other volunteers wanted to help with the events. And I was like, yes, I'd love to, because I love organising events, like any parties and things like that. Charlotte will tell you, Eurovision.
There was a party.
Anyway, I met with the staff at the head office of the Primrose, and I met the manager, and she just took a liking to me. She could see that I was really enthusiastic about events, and she said, do you want to volunteer for the fundraising team? And I said, yeah, I'd love to, because like I said, I've got a couple of days where I wasn't at college. And eventually that developed into a part-time role. And when it came to the end of my college course, I stayed on at the hospice as the community fundraiser. And that just developed into sort of being marketing department as well. And that's how I got to where I am, really. So as much as I want to say I've got some advice to give to myself, I don't think I'd be where I was if I changed anything in the past.
No, definitely. But I think to go to uni only if you really want to do it is probably really good advice at the moment, especially with the amount of debt and stuff that you'd go into if it's not really for you. So
yeah, there was a lot of family pressure. I think my family wanted me to go or expected me to go because I had got quite high grades. But actually, I didn't want to, and that's the only thing that I wish I hadn't done. But like I said, you learn from those things, don't you?
Thanks again for your time. I just wanted to wrap up as well, because I know this sounds like there's some really exciting franchise opportunities out there. So if anyone is interested, of our listeners, just to reach out on the website, is that where the best place for them to go?
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. Can I ask you a question, James?
Yeah, of course you can. Yeah.
Does your little one watch Tumble Tots at home?
She doesn't, but she's going to be watching it straight away tomorrow.
That's what I want to hear.
I haven't got a Facebook account, but I'll speak to my wife and make sure she's on there on Wednesday. Yeah, next one.
Yeah, every Monday, Wednesday, and Friday at 10 a.m.
Brilliant. Once again, I'll link everything in the notes. Thanks so much for your time.
Thank you very much.
Thank you for listening to this week's show. You can subscribe anywhere you get your podcasts. If you'd like to get in touch with us, you can write to us at dryphase.podcast@coordinate.cloud, tweet us at coordinatesport, or follow us on Instagram at coordinate_sports, or on my account at James_ventures. This episode was produced by Nancy Kwamboka, with support from Claire Goodchild and Lola Small, with special thanks to Rochelle. I'm James Moore, and you've been listening to The Drive Phase from Coordinate Sport.